Quick question for you. What is the strongest shape? If you're like me, you could have said a square or a rectangle. And if you're smarter than me, then you would have said the triangle. Yep, the triangle, specifically this one, is the most stable shape from an architectural standpoint. You can put pressure on any one of its sides and it wouldn't collapse in on itself like any other shape would. So basically what I'm saying is a pyramid is a perfect building. And these are the most famous pyramids in the world, by far. The pyramids of Giza on the outskirts of Cairo. Built to be the final resting places of the great Egyptian pharaohs, they're almost 500 feet tall, made of fine white limestone that has faded to a nice yellowish brown after 4,500 years of desert sand. The Giza complex of pyramids also includes the enigmatic Sphinx. They're really beautiful and impressive. It's not hard to see why some people think they must have been made by aliens. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there are at least 118 pyramids that have been found so far, all over Egypt. The Egyptian civilization lasted in its various forms for almost 3,000 years, and I guess they had a lot of time to build pyramids. They liked triangles, I guess. The waters of the bountiful River Nile provided them with the greenery they needed to sustain their empire in the middle of the harsh conditions of the desert. They built cities like Memphis, Thebes, and Amarna, all along the Nile. They were undoubtedly a very important and influential nation. But they weren't the only nation to exist on the River Nile. At around the same time the pyramids were being built, at around 2450 BC, the city-state of Kerma was forming along the Nile too. Over the next several centuries, they would come to comprise a massive empire in the region of Nubia that was as big as Egypt itself, and war every so often with the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians were the first to call this empire the Kingdom of Kush, a name we still use to describe it today. The Kingdom of Kush was centered around the Nile within the modern-day country of Sudan. They were nestled within the 6 whitewater rapids of the Nile, known as cataracts, and they weren't dependent on the annual flooding of the Nile as the Egyptians were, so their land was more lush and green and more sustainable year-round. They were distinct from the Egyptians, and Egyptian art shows them as having a different appearance, with darker skin, and they wore different clothing made of different animal pelts and fabrics. They were apparently masters of the bow and arrow, and the Egyptians sometimes called them the bowmen. They were a hub for trade between the Mediterranean, the Arabian Desert across the Red Sea, and sub-Saharan Africa. They traded in gold, ivory, and ebony. They supplied elephants, giraffes, and zebras to whichever rich empire wanted them for their private zoos. Egypt would export Mediterranean goods like olive oil, timber, incense, and even bronze to the Kushites. They would be under Egyptian control during the New Kingdom period, a time which saw their already very similar culture get even more similar. They would both worship the deity Amun, god of the air. Their royal families would intermarry, and the capital of Kush would then be moved further south down the river, to Napta. After some more warring with different states, which would briefly see Kushite king Pai invade Egypt and become its pharaoh, the Kushite Empire would enter its final stage, the Meroitic period. Named for the city of Meroë further south down the Nile, this period would last for about 700 years. It was a tremendous location with natural resources such as gold and iron, and also great geographic benefits with trade routes through the Red Sea and towards the interior of Africa. And boy did they build pyramids. They built more pyramids here in Meroë, in fact, than in all of the modern-day country of Egypt. Like the Egyptian pyramids, remember, similar culture, the pyramids were used as tombs for the kings, queens, and nobles of the Kushite civilization. Well, actually, they were buried underneath the pyramids themselves, so the pyramids were kind of like a giant tombstone. Now, admittedly, they are a lot smaller than the pyramids at Giza, but there are a lot. One specific site in Meroë, known as a necropolis, or city of the dead, has over 200 pyramids of various sizes. They range in height from 6 meters to 30 meters and can be as much as 7 meters wide. As opposed to the Egyptian pyramids, whose sides are set at a 50-degree angle, the pyramids at Meroë are steeper at 70 degrees. Here's a little dude to help with scale. Made of granite and sandstone, they became the final resting place for many Kushite nobles. Ironically, this came over 1,000 years after the Egyptians stopped making pyramids. It was too expensive. The remains of whoever was inside were mummified, similarly to in Egypt, and were buried along with their valuables and treasures, including jewelry, colored glass, gold, silver, pottery, furniture, bows and arrows, all sorts of stuff. This is archaeological evidence of the rich culture and thousands of years of history of the Nubian region. While similar to Egypt, Kush had its own differences, its own language and customs, and its own beautiful artworks, pottery, and craftsmanship. Whereas in previous eras the Kushites used Egyptian hieroglyphs for writing, during the Meroitic period they also included almost 2,000 inscriptions in their own Meroitic script that were generally considered to be untranslatable for a while until this guy, Claude Rilly, along with this guy, Vincent Francini, I think that's how you say it, started making some progress in the 1990s. In 2009, in an effort to uncover more inscriptions at another Meroitic site, Sedainga, located 450 miles from Meroë, they discovered possibly thousands of new burial sites, many of which were underneath smaller pyramids. The largest one they found was 6.7 meters, 22 feet, wide, and over 9 meters tall. Here's another little dude. They also found smaller pyramids, just inches across, that are believed to be the tombs of children. All in all, they found remains of hundreds of pyramids along all those burial sites. This represented a shift in understanding of the Kushite civilization, because these pyramids were believed to be built by people without ties to the nobility, possibly because of how far away they were from Meroë itself. They probably wouldn't be worried about copying the nobles because, well, who was ever going to find out? As Francini said, there could have been a certain degree of democratization here. And by the way, they also found 5 more inscriptions to help them begin to translate the Meroitic script. All in all, this is a topic I knew nothing about and something that is worth learning about and mentioning. Sudanese pyramids, erected by a long-gone kingdom of Kush that outnumbered Egypt's pyramids easily. The history of Sudan, the ancient region of Nubia, and its people had somehow completely escaped my knowledge. The history is rich, nuanced, complicated, and well worth discovering more about. The Great Nile River, birthplace of civilizations, connector of worlds, and archaeological mecca, has always been a source of mystery and wisdom, helping us to understand our own human past. If I had to bet, I'd say the Nile still holds more secrets that we have yet to discover. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing for more videos. I'm going to leave links to the sites used in this video as reference materials, and if this subject interests you, you should definitely go check them out because this is definitely something that not a lot of people know about, I think, and I think more people should. So once again, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.